Hello, everybody. Welcome to Outdoor School. My name is Birdie, and I will be your instructor today. And before we get started, I just wanted to say that I hope everyone's having a great day so far, and to remember to take care of yourselves, do a little bit of light stretching, drink some water, get some sunshine if you are able to. We want to make sure to take care of ourselves and aid in having a positive day. So I'm very excited to be here with you all. And today we will be talking about adaptations. And this may or may not be a word that you are familiar with. If you are not familiar, that is a-okay, because that is what we are going to be talking about today, is all things adaptation and the cool things that animals can do. So before we talk about that, I wanted to touch on our science kits. So these are really cool. We're really lucky to have these. We want to make sure to thank Outdoor School for providing these for us. They worked very hard on it, and make sure to utilize it. There's a lot of cool science-y things in there for you to be a scientist. So for today, you will need your field notebook. We will be doing a fun activity that you'll be using this for. And you may or may not use your whiteboard, which is also in your science kit. So make sure to have those things handy. And feel free to pause this presentation if you need to go and grab those things, if you need to go and collect your items before we get started. By the end of our adaptation lesson, you, the scientist, will be able to identify some examples of adaptations, learn the difference between physical and behavioral adaptations, and identify an animal's niche within their habitat using their adaptations. All right, so first and foremost, before we jump into what exactly adaptation is and some fun activities that we're going to do, I want us to think about what our favorite animal is. I want you to think about what your unique and own favorite animal is. So what you are going to do is draw a picture of your favorite animal on your whiteboard or in your nature journal. And it does not have to be perfect. I, for one, am not a good artist at all. When I draw, it's really just stick figures and very sad-looking shapes. So don't worry if you feel like you're not a good artist. But just go ahead and sketch what your favorite animal is. And if it helps, go ahead and maybe do a quick internet search so you have a photo for reference. If you just need some refreshing on some certain traits of that animal. But while you are thinking of your favorite animal and drawing this animal, pay attention to some of the physical traits that are unique to this animal and think about, why might this animal have these things or do these things? So I'm going to give you an example of what my favorite animal is, and mine is a great horned owl. I think they're such cool animals. I actually found a pair of them by my house in a local neighborhood park. So I go and I observe them a couple times a week because they actually had some babies recently. So it's really cool to go and observe them and watch what they do and kind of just watch their behavior throughout the day. What I notice about these owls is that they camouflage very, very well with their environment. As you can see in this picture, the owl blends in so much with this tree. And I know if the owl's eyes were closed, I probably wouldn't even tell that this owl was there. especially if this was in person and I just was walking through a park, it would be very hard for me to spot this owl. And so this is an example of an adaptation of owls over time, or of this specific owl, the great horned owl. Over time, they have adapted to their environment and they learned to blend in very well to avoid predators. So other big animals, big birds, other big mammals that might want to eat this owl, they can camouflage themselves and avoid these predators. And also, I think that it helps them to catch prey. So these owls are known to eat mice and rats and maybe sometimes squirrels. So if they camouflage like this, those animals are less likely to spot the owl, and the owl is more likely to catch some dinner that night for itself and its family. And another thing I noticed about the owl is its bright colored eyes. And something that I learned recently is that over time they have adapted to have this color eye so that they can see better at nighttime to go hunting. So that is another example of an adaptation of great horned owls. So feel free to pause this presentation if you'd like to take a couple minutes to think of your favorite animal and draw this animal and maybe come up with some thoughts and ideas of what an adaptation would be for your favorite animal. So here in the picture we have an iguana, it looks like. We have an ostrich, we have a moose, we have a cool looking fish down there in the bottom left. So just go ahead and brainstorm and write down your thoughts. All right, so at this point, if you had to pause, totally okay, take as much time as you need. We are going to jump in to what adaptation the actual definition is. So the textbook definition of adaptation is an animal's physical traits or behaviors that help them survive in their habitat. So this is a pretty amazing ability of all animals on Earth. Even humans, we are able to adapt. Over so much time, we have had many adaptations. For example, here at the bottom of our slide, it says, my favorite adaptation is thumbs. So not all animals have thumbs. They don't all have the ability to grab things the way that we do. So over time, humans and also some primates like monkeys and gorillas, we have evolved to have thumbs to grab things, which makes our lives so much easier every single day. So when you're thinking about these physical traits or behaviors of the animal, your favorite animal, these may be an adaptation. So for example, as I was just talking about the great horned owl, their physical trait is camouflaging with the trees and also with the moss. They really can blend in with the moss, especially the babies, because the babies are a light gray color. So it is really hard to spot them in trees. And this helps them to survive in their habitat. So along with this presentation, I am going to include a Jamboard for us to have a little interactive activity together. And the link is provided to you. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that up in just a minute so you can see what I'm seeing. And we can do a little practice round of what we are going to be doing. So before I pull up the Jamboard, I wanted to go over some examples of what some adaptations could potentially be that you might want to share. So some examples could include size, color, like the great horned owl, shape, sounds, so we can think about birds or maybe wolves or dogs, big cats, the sounds that they make. Migration, this is a big one. Diet. So these are a couple of things to consider while we are doing our Jamboard activity. So I am going to hop over to our Jamboard in just a minute. You can see I have created a slide for us on Jamboard, and we are going to take some time and write out some examples of adaptations. This could be for your favorite animal that you previously drew, or it could be any other animal that comes to mind. Maybe you already know of a cool adaptation, or you recently discovered something cool about an animal. So we are all going to share that right here. And I will kick us off. So if you've never used Jamboard before, over on the left column where you can see the picture of the pen, the eraser, a little almost mountain-looking photo, you can add text, you can add photos, you can add a sticky note, how I just did, where it says Adaptations. So you can really do anything you want. So now, first, I'm going to add a sticky note. And I am going to include what I was talking about with the owls. Great horned owls camouflage with their environment to avoid predators and catch prey easier. So we are going to each take some time and include some adaptations that we think are really cool. Something else that I can add, actually I'll add a text box just to kind of show you how to do that. So you can create a text box and click anywhere and just start typing. So another example of an adaptation would be migration. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is when birds migrate. So over time, most species of birds have adapted to migrating throughout the year. So most birds cannot survive harsh winters like polar bears can and penguins because they have adapted to cold weather. But most birds have to fly somewhere else during the winter. So for example, some birds that you may have in Oregon, maybe they don't do so well in the cold winter. So they may migrate down to Southern California to experience warmer weather. So I am going to go ahead and type that out for us. Migration. Birds may migrate in the winters to avoid the snow and cold weather. So this is a pretty cool adaptation. This helps them to survive and to mate with a partner so that they can have more birds and that the population can thrive and grow. Take some time to add some adaptations to our Jamboard and go ahead and pause this presentation and feel free to come back and play it whenever you've added any adaptations that you want. All right, so if you are back now, after pausing for a couple of minutes, we are going to jump back into our presentation about adaptations. So at this point, we have identified our favorite animal and thought about what some of their adaptations might be, some of their physical characteristics or their behavior. And we have taken some time to think about what some of those adaptations might be. And we have also added some adaptations to our class's Jamboard, which will be included in this presentation for you. So moving on, we are going to use a really cool tool to identify some more adaptations of animals. So far we have only talked about a few. We've talked about the great horned owl, how they camouflage, how that helps them to avoid predators and helps them to catch prey. And we've talked about migration, how birds migrate in the winter to avoid the snow and the cold weather that they likely can't survive. So they go to warmer climates to live a happier life there for a couple of months. So these are only a couple of thousands and thousands of adaptations that animals have. So this wheel here is going to teach us more about adaptations. So I am going to give everybody a minute to click on this link right here, the one that says tinyurl.com or tinyurl, excuse me, .com/adaptwheel. And we are going to go through this together. I will share my screen with you so that you can see what I see, but I want you all to do this on your own as well. And we are going to spin this wheel at least 3 times so that we can see different adaptations. And after we read what different adaptations are on here, I am going to have you draw in your nature journal or on any piece of paper that you may have where you live and design an animal that would have all 3 of those adaptations. Okay, so here we go. Our first adaptation is feathers. So feathers are an awesome adaptation for birds. They are the only animal that has feathers. Think about that. Out of all the animals in the world, only birds have feathers. So these help to keep them warm. They help to direct them while they're flying. They help them survive. Birds would not be how they are and how they are today, how they survive their everyday life. They would not be how they are today without their feathers. So let's keep that in mind. Jot that down in your notebook so that we can remember what our 3 adaptations are. All right, moving on to our second adaptation. What's it gonna be? Sharp teeth. So this is another adaptation. What first comes to mind for me are carnivores such as wolves. So wolves have adapted and evolved over time to have those really sharp canine teeth. And if you have a pet dog, you might notice that they have these sharp teeth as well, as our dogs did evolve from wolves at one point in their lives. But wolves are considered to be carnivores. So I think about Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming. They have lots of wolves. The population has been repopulating over time, and they have evolved throughout their time of existence to have very sharp teeth to eat elk, to eat deer, rabbits, bison, any source of meat that they can access. And without these sharp teeth, they would not be able to eat that meat and they would not be able to survive because wolves are not meant to survive off of plants like some animals are. For example, gorillas are actually herbivores, so they only eat plants and berries and maybe sometimes little bugs, but they are not meat eaters. They do not have the sharp teeth. They have more of dull teeth. So that is an adaptation of a gorilla, is that they have dull teeth to eat plants instead of meat. So let's jot this one down, sharp teeth, and keep that in our memory for the drawing that we are going to complete together. All right, moving on to number 3. Scales. So this is a really, really cool one. I actually didn't think of this one, so I'm glad that we're using this wheel to teach us. So scales, only reptiles and fish have these. So think about it. What might scales do? And how do they help fish survive? How do they help snakes survive? So what first comes to mind for me is that scales are like an outer coating for the fish. It's like a suit of armor for them. So it can protect them from pointy things that might be in the water. If they swim by a coral reef, maybe they accidentally rub up against it, and the scales may protect them from any sort of injury. So it acts much like our thick skin on our body. And fish have adapted over time to have scales rather than the skin that we have. All right, so I want you to take some time and spin this wheel a couple of times on your own. And feel free to gather your own 3 adaptations to draw a really cool picture of an animal that might have these 3 adaptations. And use your imagination. So, as I said at the beginning, this is not an art class. We do not judge your abilities. This is outdoor school, a place for us to have fun, be ourselves, express ourselves. So just have some fun and draw an awesome picture. So to really benefit your learning and your experience with this topic, try to add some clear descriptions and label so you can describe the adaptation and label what some adaptations might be. Maybe think about some reason for your animal's adaptation. So, for example, like we talked about, the fish scales, it protects them from any injuries. And back to the great horned owl, it protects them from predators when they camouflage. You can also include where your animal might live and what your animal might eat. So as an example, currently I'm here in Florida, so that's where some great horned owls live. And I mentioned before that they like to eat smaller rodents such as rats and mice. And bonus points if you add in some details about another animal that might interact with yours. So for example, with my great horned owl, I would say another animal that might interact with it is an osprey. That is another larger bird. And I sometimes see them in the same area, so they may compete for food. So that is just an example of something that you could say about your animal. All right, and once you are done drawing your picture, go ahead and snap a photo of it and upload it to our class's Jamboard. So I will show you really quick on our Jamboard. Here we have these arrows, so you can go ahead and create a new page by clicking this arrow, and you can make it your page. So I'm just going to go ahead and label this one student number 1. And once you get here, you can rename it and put your name there in place of that, and upload a picture of your drawing so we can all see each other's drawings and see what all the different adaptations are, and we can all learn together. All right. Well, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, any questions about this fun assignment, let us know. We are more than happy to help out. But I just want to say before I close out, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time, your attention, your creative ideas. So I hope you learned something new today about adaptations. And I hope that now you're more aware of how cool animals are with their ability to adapt to their environment to survive. So again, my name is Birdie, and I had a great day with you at Outdoor School. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.